You don't belong here. You don't fit in. Everyone else seems more confident, more competent, more academic. That's the voice in your head, isn't it? The one whispering that sooner or later, someone's gonna find out that you're not quite as smart as they think you are. If you feel like that, you're not alone. That feeling actually has a name. It's called imposter syndrome. And it's one of the most common psychological parasites in academia. Millions of students, postgrads, even professors deal with it every single day. And the cruel thing is, the more competent you actually are, the more likely you are to feel it. But to really understand it, we need to go somewhere unexpected. Back to a book written almost a century ago. In Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, society is divided into castes. Before birth, humans are engineered in labs. The alphas are given extra nutrients, extra oxygen, extra development. They actually grow up to be physically taller, stronger, more intelligent. Below them are the betas, then the gammas, deltas, and finally epsilons right at the bottom. Each are designed for their own station, for their own purpose, destiny, for their job. Now among the alphas, there's one character who doesn't quite fit, and he's called Bernard Marx. By all accounts, Bernard is an alpha. He has the intelligence, the education, and the privileges. But there's just one problem. He's shorter than the other alphas.
Did you stick the landing, little guy?
Slightly weaker, slightly less imposing, and he becomes obsessed with that difference. He believes that others look down on him, that they whisper about him behind his back, and he's constantly worrying that the lower castes, the gammas, deltas, epsilons, that they don't respect him the way they should. Assassin! But here's the really interesting part. In the book, when we first meet Bernard, we're never actually shown anyone from a lower caste disrespecting him. We only ever see it from Bernard's point of view. You see, it's his interpretation of things like glances, mutterings, half-heard conversations. That's what we see. It's all in his head. Now, when I read Brave New World, Bernard instantly reminded me of people that I'd met in my life who were suffering from imposter syndrome. Constantly anxious, constantly self-critical, and constantly projecting insecurity onto everyone around them. You see, Bernard is an alpha, but he doesn't feel like one. And so he spends the entire book trying to prove something that no one else ever doubted in the first place. Sound familiar? Imposter syndrome is everywhere in academia, particularly among postgraduates and early career researchers. Think about it. You were probably a high achiever during your undergraduate years. Top of the class, best grades, always told you were smart. And if not, you were certainly achieving at a high level. But then you arrive in a lab or a research group, and all of a sudden things are different. You're not sitting exams anymore. You're running experiments. You're publishing papers. You're presenting your work to crowds of hundreds or thousands. And when your first experiment fails, your first paper gets rejected, or you muck up your first presentation, the confidence that once defined you starts to crumble. And you begin to question whether you actually belong here at all. That's when the comparisons usually start. You start looking at other members of the lab, senior postdocs, for example, and they make everything look effortless. And you think, how does she get so much done? How does he know exactly what to do? And you don't even realize, you don't stop to think that you're comparing your first draft to someone else's final product, or your first year of experience to someone's 10th. It's a completely unreasonable comparison. But most people can't help it. And that's because the brain is wired to compare. We measure our worth by proximity to others, and in research, there's always someone smarter, faster, or someone with more publications, someone who's better at presenting. It's true for the rest of life as well. But the real truth, you're not an imposter. You're just a beginner comparing yourself to veterans. But it feels real, that tightness in your chest when someone asks a question you can't answer. The dread when you're presenting to experts and you're worried you're gonna mispronounce something or say something slightly wrong, and that's gonna out you to everyone. And it's gonna make them think that you're someone who doesn't know what they're doing, that you don't belong. So how do we fix this? Like most things in life, there's no cheat code. There's no quick fix, but you can outgrow it. Dr. Jordan Peterson in 12 Rules for Life, gives one of the best pieces of advice for those suffering from imposter syndrome. Compare yourself with who you were yesterday, not with who someone else is today. Personally, that line changed my life. Back when I was a PhD student, I suffered from imposter syndrome too. It wasn't until I read the book that things started to change. You see, Peterson argues that once we reach the age of about 10 onwards, comparison with others becomes somewhat absurd. Everyone's life starts to branch off. We have different experiences, families, genetics, opportunities, hobbies, and interests. The variables multiply infinitely as we get older and older. So to be in a lab, to compare yourself to another person, it's like comparing the weather in Belfast to the weather on Mars. It's not even the same ecosystem. It becomes absolutely absurd. Okay, so what are you supposed to do then? How can we measure ourselves to see how we are doing if we can't compare ourselves to others? What is the standard? Well, the truth is the standard should be yourself. More precisely, who you were yesterday. Maybe you want to improve your writing, your public speaking, or some other academic skill. Technical skills associated with certain experiments you have to do. Then each day, ask yourself these sorts of questions. Did I write a little bit more clearly than yesterday? Did I understand one new concept that I didn't before? Did I speak up in a meeting that I would have stayed silent in last week? Did I present from in front of the podium this time instead of hiding behind it? Small daily improvements like this compound. Think about it. If you get 1% better every day, after a year, you'll be almost 40 times better because of that compound interest. Now, will you be able to actually feel and see these improvements each and every day? Not exactly. They're subtle, they're slight. But over longer periods of weeks to months, you will start to notice it. For example, when I finished writing my PhD thesis, I went back and read my undergraduate dissertation. And to be honest, it looked like the scribblings of the criminally insane compared to what I had just written. So make sure you schedule time for regular reflection on your progress. Journaling can be a useful way of doing this, and that way you will actually notice the improvement you're making over time. Now, if you're really hardcore, this is more of a David Goggins type technique. Write down all the negative thoughts you have, all of the self-doubt, all of the source of that imposter syndrome. Sometimes when you see these things written out on paper, they look ridiculous compared to when the voice in your head is saying them to you. Sometimes when it's out in black and white, you can look at it and think, well, that's just not true. If you want something a little more concrete, something that can pull you back if you're having a down day, then start building a bank of proof. This could be a notebook or a folder on your computer. This is where you put all of the evidence that contradicts those negative thoughts about yourself. Maybe you have a day where you start to doubt whether you're any good at writing. Well, if you've published anything, put that in the folder. That way, when you have days like that, you can look at it and go, well, actually, I published that, so I don't suck at writing. I'm just having a down day. Maybe you have a day where you start to doubt if you're any good at public speaking. Well, if you have any feedback from students from your lectures or photos and awards for presentations in the past, put them in the folder, in the bank of proof. Something you can look back on, lift yourself back up when that negative self-talk starts to come out. This technique, this idea of the bank of proof, it's been repopularized recently by influencers like Alex Hormozy, but it dates far back to cognitive behavioral therapy in the 1970s. So there is an established scientific basis for it. Okay, so back to Bernard Marx in Brave New World. Some of the things we've just talked about, these are things Bernard never realized. He had all the proof he needed, but he refused to believe it. He spent his entire life complaining that he wasn't like the other alphas. But at no point does he actually try to change. He never thought, okay, I'm not as big as the other alphas. Maybe I should go hit the gym. Maybe I should actually work on it. He just moaned and he alienates everyone around him. And that's what happens to people who let imposter syndrome win. They stop growing because they're too busy comparing. And this is true in life as well. You've probably met people like this. People who all they do is complain about things they don't have or things they're not good at, things they wish they could be better at. And they complain almost like it's their full-time job, just to complain, but they never actually take the first step to do something about it. This gets back to that idea of, I've mentioned in another video, that there are two types of people. There are people who think that their whole life is predestined. You know, I'm not just good at public speaking, never have been, never will be. And then there's people who realize that they have control over their lives. Okay, I'm not good at public speaking, but you know what? I'm going to go take a class, I'm going to sign up to a course, I'm going to get some coaching, I'm going to improve that part of myself because I understand that it is really important and it's going to open up new opportunities to me. Now, unfortunately, this group of people are somewhat rare. 90% people are the type of people who just are happy to whinge, moan, and complain, and they don't really appreciate that most people are sick of hearing it, okay? Now, that 10% who actually realize they can do something about it, these are the people that end up running labs and rising to the top ranks in any industry they find themselves in. So remember, you're not an imposter, you're just unfinished. And that's okay, you're supposed to be. Life is a journey. Man is both the marble and the sculptor. Every day you chip away at who you were yesterday and you shape who you'll become tomorrow. So stop comparing and start carving. Thank you very much for watching, folks. As always, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so that you get notified every time a new video comes up. Now, if this video struck a chord with you, if you're someone who suffers from imposter syndrome, maybe there's certain things that you want to get better at, if it's academic writing or presenting, public speaking, then I can help you with that, okay? Check out my website, www.uksmosthatedacademiccoach.com. I'll put the link in the description of today's video. Let me know down in the comments below, have you ever suffered from imposter syndrome? Are you suffering from it now? What are some tips that have helped you overcome it? I want to hear from you down in the comments below.